Hey everybody, VP with Metaverse News One here. And before we get started, regular viewers of the show may notice some sound differences today, and that's because I'm on the road and I have a travel mic, and just wanted to explain that before we go forward. But let's go forward because we have some things to talk about, don't we? Now, we had a really big announcement on Discord yesterday regarding Illuvium Zero. There has been a major change. Let's go take a look at it. So, yesterday afternoon, Rich drops this little bomb here, and the key highlights are as such. Fuel output reduced. This is the big one. Output has been decreased by 4x, that is 25% of what it was before through extraction and passive generation. We're going to take a closer look at the patch notes in just a moment, but these are definitely the lowlights, let's say. Conversion efficiency. Converters now offer 100% conversion at 150% operational efficiency. That is a change. And then adjusted costs. You'll see more about that as we get into the patch. Let's go ahead and do that now. So scrolling down, a lot of what Rich was saying already here. Now, if there's any silver lining here, it's that the fuel building costs have also varied and become a bit more friendly in one aspect in particular. It's not really a building cost, but you'll see what I'm talking about in a moment. Now, the explanation they gave is this. We'll talk about the explanation in a moment, but it says our main goal is to reduce overall end fuel output per plot by 4x. We reduced the fuel output for lower stages by smaller amounts to make the hurdles felt for lower tier plots feel less insurmountable in relative terms. We've also upped the resource cost a bit to compensate for the longer duration. Now, this is a consolation prize, but not much of one, as we're going to see in just a moment. So I'm not going to sit here and go over every one of these. You can simply go to the patch notes yourself if you actually care about the actual amounts. But you can see that already just by looking at it, it is quite a difference. Regular Illuvium Zero players will see this right away. And the same goes for passives. Passives weren't really much anyway, but now they're even less. And just to add insult to injury, the conversions got even worse. Now, here is where it gets interesting for followers of my channel, because I think we all think the same way. Scanning costs have also gotten cheaper. Now, this is not going to be a net gain because we still have our fuel reduced by 75%, but Stage 1, for example, it used to be 10, 10, and 10 for a scanner. Now it's going to be 6, 6, and 6, and then so on and so forth as you get higher. Now look at the reason. It says the scanning costs have been rebalanced, especially for higher stages of the Singularity scanner. This aligns with our idea. I did not know this was your idea, but I'm glad our ideas are similar, that the scan research focus should be removed from the fuel magnate focus. So what they're saying is people should be thinking the way we think on the channel. And if you wanted to be a fuel magnate, well, go ahead and put that dream to bed now and adjust accordingly. And so as far as blueprint people go, this is going to be a change all across the board, along with research as well. So fuel got a lot harder, but scanning and research both have gotten easier now. Let's go back to the board. So you have fuel that is now being cut by 75%. That really is the big news. Everything else is kind of ancillary compared to that. But it wasn't even that really got me. It was the explanation that we just went over. It doesn't add up at all. So you're telling me that you're going to destroy our fuel output by 75%. Just so some people, we don't know who these people are or what impact they have, who have tier 1 plots, can feel better about themselves and their place in the game because they have a lower tier plot, because they spent a lot less money to buy that plot than somebody did who has a T4. We want to make them feel better. And to accomplish that, we're going to do this. Team, make it make sense. This is not the first time we've gotten suspect reasoning for things that happen in Illuvium Zero. I remember back when we had already delayed 2 or 3 times, and then we were right on the doorstep. We had an announcement date and everything. And Johnny comes on and says, We are no longer releasing Illuvium Zero on this date, and it ended up taking like another 5 or 6 months. Why? Because they wanted to make it look better. That was what they told us. And we're all sitting here like, dude, just release the goddamn game. We don't care what it looks like. It's a city builder. It's not supposed to be beautiful. Now, does the game look better now? Sure. Of course it does. But I feel like, I'm not a dev, but that could have probably been done as we go. We just keep getting these Mickey Mouse explanations that I just don't buy. And I am very pro Illuvium. I am very pro team. I will almost always give them the benefit of the doubt. But that explanation just did not stick right with me at all. It does not make sense. Now, this is the first video being released on YouTube about this subject matter, so I'll be really interested to see future videos on this and what some of the response looks like. And we will see if they amend it, or at least just explain further, why they did what they did, and how those two things correlate, because I'm just not seeing it. Are you? Comment below. But at the end of the day, landholders were obviously not happy about this, nor should they be, really, even though I will conclude this video with some positivity. This was something that really blindsided the Illuvium Zero community. So let's just go ahead and get all the bad out of the way now before we move forward. But as I somewhat alluded to before, landholders just get the worst of it all the time, don't we? I mean, we don't feel like we have enough representation, and probably the only reason we feel that way is because we are the ones that just keep getting the wrong side of every decision. So it would seem. I can't think of the last time we took a W. But what's even really disheartening about all this is, even though we would have had to sell it first and then buy it back, and maybe they changed that along the way, but really the whole dream of us using our fuel just simply to play Overworld for free is, I'm not going to say completely over. It's mostly over, at least in the short term. I think once we max everything out, depending on how much land you have, this is going to become easier. But now, with the reduced fuel output, even getting to that point is going to take a lot longer. So I always preach patience on this channel, but we're going to have to really reach down and grab some patience from within, a lot more than we had to before. Now, those budding fuel magnates have every reason to be upset. Look, I don't know, I can't even remember what was actually said, what came out of the team's mouth in terms of the promises they were going to make. But I know that a lot of people were understandably led to believe that they were going to be able to make some decent money simply selling fuel. That's why they bought the lands that had those enhancements, and the larger lands as a whole. And if I dropped 20 ETH on your game for one land parcel because I believed in you, and then you did this to me, I'm not going to be happy. And then just overall, if you're ever thinking of selling land in the future, lands aren't worth as much if they don't produce as much. I mean, that's just business 101, right? So I wanted to get all of this out of the way and out in the open now, and then move on and move forward. Now, let me start kind of with the obvious here. Now, if you guys know my backstory, I've said it on previous videos. I've been an investor for 15 years. I've been a trader for 14 years. And if I know anything, it is that emotions take you down. Emotions are the destroyer of wealth. And those who are able to control theirs will always surpass those who can't, in the long run especially. The people who know what to do just simply play with the chess pieces that are on the board, because that's what you have. Sometimes you get to move those pieces, sometimes you don't. But that doesn't change what you have to do. You just have to sit back, stop, see what the board looks like, and adjust accordingly. That's it. But the one things I will say, and we always have to understand this, is that the team is not going to know where to adjust things until they have real data. You can prognosticate these things before the game's release and do as best as you can possibly do to get the game as close to perfect and ready when you first release it. But we all know that's not the case in real life. There will be many changes in the first year, especially. I mean, are we even a month into this yet? There's going to be a lot of changes coming down the line. Some you're going to like, some you're not. So if you don't like this one, just know there's probably more coming. You should prepare yourself for that. But the other thing I want to highlight here, and I want to highlight this in every video if I can, is what really matters at the end of the day is not our personal fuel production. It matters to us. But if there is no game to play in the future, then it matters absolutely zero. The longevity and sustainability of the game is what's really important here. And I think, and I'm hoping, that this decision was made more so for that than to foster and cater to the feelings of a handful of Tier 1 landholders, which doesn't make sense at all. And the more I say it, the more ridiculous it sounds, actually. But as much as I might not like these decisions, if it actually benefits the longevity of the game, then I am for it, and I will adjust, and I will be fine. How about you? Now, I know this might be hard to believe, so let's move on to the reality of the situation then, and kind of map it out just so we can understand what we need to do going forward. So parts of this do suck, absolutely. We just covered that. But are we going to sit there and dwell on it and cry about it for the next, week, 2 weeks until we move on to something different? It doesn't do anything. But at the same time, I'm not a perma-bear on this game. I'm very bullish. But I will point out things where they need to be pointed out. So I hope we've done that. However, think of it this way. And I'm always trying to see the sunny side of things, but this is actually very real. If they would have just started us out at these numbers, which is probably what they wish they would have done at the very beginning, we would have probably complained that the game was moving a bit too slow, but we wouldn't have really cared. I've always said it too, a lot of the parts of this game should be difficult. It should be a slog. It should be an uphill battle. So they pay off in the end. If we see a lot of what we saw during the beta with Overworld, for example, this game would have been toast in 4 to 5 months because there have been really no more mountains to climb. So maybe think of it this way. If the numbers we have right now would have been that way from the start, we wouldn't have given a shit. But we got a gift early on in the form of higher production numbers. We, as current landholders, got a head start, a big one, on future landholders. Maybe we should be grateful for that. Does that make sense? But overall, really, we here at the channel are all about blueprints because we think blueprints have the most asymmetrical upside. Now, not much has changed on the blueprint front because the rules have changed for everybody, not just us. At the end of the day, blueprints are player versus player. There's only so many blueprints out there, and I'm trying to get the same ones you're trying to get. And they got to go to somebody. I want that somebody to be me. But if it becomes more difficult for me, then it also becomes more difficult for you. And so last week, we were pretty much playing the exact same game we're playing this week when it comes to blueprints. Really, nothing's changed. Now, believe it or not, there could be some real good to come out of this. I know people don't understand this when emotions are high, but intelligence generally goes down when emotions are high. So let's get back to par here. Let's get back to center. But as I said before, I try to see the good in things. I'm not a permabull on this game, even though it sounds like I am sometimes. I'm very much in Illuvium's corner at the end of the day. But think of it this way. Again, a lot of this is just really trying to see things from a different perspective. I think this is such a net positive for blueprints because just like Dark Hollows, for example, in Overworld, I think these things need to be a lot harder to obtain and take a lot longer to. I saw somebody on Discord today talk about how he already had 71 blueprints, and I'm sure there's other people out there who have a lot more already this early into the game. That is too damn much. These things need to be rare and special because if they're not, why the hell are we even chasing them in the first place? And now, through these patch notes, blueprints got a lot harder to obtain. This could be the best news out of everything. We might even look back on these patch notes and say, man, this was really the best thing that could have possibly done for us. Because I want to highlight it again. Remember, game longevity is paramount. Whine and complain about the things that happen to you and your plight in this game, but if we don't even have a game to begin with, none of this matters. And so we always have to keep that into consideration. And if this was a positive move for the game overall, well, then it's a positive move for everybody, even though it may not feel that way. And for what it's worth, too, people dump their land. And I thought land was cheap before my last video. It got even cheaper. Guys, I know this from investing. When things are at their cheapest, sentiment is in the toilet. There is FUD everywhere. People give up. They sell. They move on to something else. They give up all hope on this project ever becoming anything worthwhile for them. And these are exactly the things that happen at or near a bottom. I am already invested into this game as much as I can be, really, and so I am not going to do this. But if you were to add on land now, since you already know what it's about and you know what types of land are good, I've done that, I've highlighted that on this channel. Not financial advice, but this would be a pretty darn good time to buy in the grand scheme of things, don't you think? That's all I got. Let me know what you think in the comments. You may agree or disagree, but I am trying to do my best to show all sides of the situation because all of these situations have many sides, but we don't always see them, especially early on. But either way, thank you for sticking it out to the end, and thank you for listening to us here on Metaverse News One.